Hey everyone, this is Lori Barnes with Kepler College, back with another Let's Talk Astrology Business episode with my co-host, Marie O'Neill. I am the astrologer who helps astrologers with their business, helps you with your marketing and your branding. And I'm going to hand it over to Marie to introduce herself.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Marie O'Neill. I am a life coach who specializes in life renewal for anyone who is going through any type of trauma and they're ready to renew their life. I am also an astrologer, and this is how I work with my life coaching clients. I teach classes at Kepler College and also host virtual healing retreats. Welcome to another edition of our podcast.
So today's episode is going to be on the Midheaven, the MC. We're really excited to talk to you about this because it is a very important part of the chart.
It is one of my favorite parts of the chart.
Yeah, well, people talk about the big three, and obviously the big three are really important, the sun and the moon and the rising sign. When it comes to business, your midheaven becomes very important as well. And of course, the synergy of your whole chart. But we're going to just talk about the midheaven today. And what the midheaven is, it's where the sun reaches its peak in the sky on your day of birth. And it symbolizes your highest potential, your public path, and the legacy that you are here to create.
With the signs, you're looking at the signs that are on the midheaven because that's going to talk to you about your core values, your expertise. It's your life calling. It is how other people see you out in the world. So that it's about your visibility and how credible you're actually seen. It's your leadership expression, it's your public brand and your legacy, it's your audience connection, it's how you're going to connect with others. If that midheaven is strong, people are going to naturally gravitate towards you.
If you're struggling with figuring out how to put your brand out there, we're going to ask you to look at your midheaven, and we are going to show you some examples of charts today. We also want you to look at the Midheaven Ruler, right? So whatever sign is on the midheaven, it's going to have a planetary ruler. And that planet is going to also help you with your branding for your strategy. You can look to that ruler, the planet that rules that sign, and let it give you some insight for how to shape your brand, for how to position your brand, and how to design your messaging. It can guide how you get that visibility. If the midheaven sign is about your visibility, the midheaven sign ruler is going to show you more information
Mhm.
about that. How are you developing your credibility? How are you differentiating yourself from other brands? How do you attract people? How do you build your reputation?
It becomes kind of a shortcut. You'll look like you have a superpower because you're looking at your midheaven and you're looking at the ruler, and you just instantly know what not to do. You've got your parameters of how you are to go about creating your brand and marketing yourself.
Marie is actually putting together a storytelling masterclass. And I think that it's going to be really interesting to think about your chart and how it tells a story.
Mhm.
And, I'm looking at this bullet point here that says it works with Mercury and the ascendant ruler for brand cohesion. Think about how you can put a story together for your chart. I hope that you have your chart in front of you as you're watching this video and think
Yeah.
about, well, who is my midheaven ruler? Who is my ascendant ruler? And
Mhm.
then looking at your Mercury and make a story out of it. Like design a character. If your Mars is in Aries, he's a warrior, it's going to go out and conquer, right? But if your
Mhm.
Mars is in Pisces, then maybe it's going to have a softer approach and it's going to intuit its way through designing your strategy. And then how does that character Mars work with Mercury in a different sign and the ascendant ruler in a different sign? So start thinking about that when we're talking about your midheaven and when we're talking about business. We're focusing on your business. We're very much taking a focused approach on how to design your business, your brand, and your marketing strategy in this series. We wanted to mention that we're going to use the whole sign house system. because we know that there are some of you out there who use whole sign houses. And if you do, you could have a floating midheaven. And if you have your midheaven in the ninth, 10th, or 11th house, then what you're doing is taking the midheaven to that house and it's connecting the themes and topics with that house to that midheaven, which is that hot point, the angle. We are not going to be able to present every single house. Like, we know sometimes the midheaven can float even to the 8th house and the 12th house. For the sake of time, we won't be delineating every single house that the midheaven can fall in. But through this video, hopefully you can get some good ideas on what different midheavens look like
Mhm.
for yourself and for your clients.
Sit back, relax, have your pen and paper so that you can write notes, or for that matter, take little screenshots of the information so that you can go back and use it. This is a great template for you to use when you're creating a business, or even if you already have your business up and running, you can double check to make sure that everything is operating optimally for you. So it's perfect. And all of the chart examples are Rodin rating, meaning that we know we have the exact time and date for each individual. So we don't have to worry about, oh, is this an actual time or is it estimated? Where did you get this information? It's all AA Rodin rate. And we're using, of course, the whole house system for this.
And these are celebrity charts. I don't think Marie knows any of them. I know I don't know any of them. So obviously we're only able to use the publicly available information. We're not able to get the feedback from them, and we're not going to guess as to, how they see their charts, or we don't really know what their marketing strategy meetings look like.
Mhm.
But still, celebrity charts tend to be the best examples we have to use to demonstrate what the different signs on the midheaven would look like.
And if you know some of the celebrities that we're talking about, compare or analyze what we're saying about them with what you know about them. And also know that with any celebrity, we only know what is public. If you know the actor or actress or whoever the public figure is, it doesn't mean that you really know them. You know the face that they're putting on, and you can look to see if the face that how you see them matches with that midheaven. Tyra, it's interesting because Tyra is someone that I watched years ago because I remember her being brought onto Oprah Winfrey's show, the Oprah show, and looking at her, you just kind of knew that she was a force to be reckoned with. And now looking at her midheaven, you can understand that because it's an Aries midheaven. So she's a trailblazer. She is going to be bringing original ideas and she is unstoppable. And we also look at the fact that Mars is the ruler of her midheaven. And so she's going to be driven by initiative and she's going to be very competitive. She's not going to accept no. She's going to fight. She's a warrior. And that is what she's done in her career. Would you
Yeah,
like to add to that? Yeah. Yeah.
I was just reading today that she's into sport, that she plays different sports and really gets into it, which I know is not branding, but I thought that was interesting when I was reading that. So yeah, we look at her brand ruler, Mars is also in Aries. So that makes it even extra powerful. It's very much on the same page with her midheaven. They're together, and the moon and Chiron, we see a stellium there. So her brand is going to enjoy doing things that haven't been done before
Mhm.
and having a lot of energy to put into that. And don't mess with me, or
Oh,
please
yeah.
mess with me. Maybe that as Aries moon, I kind of relate. It's like, please challenge me because I'm up for the challenge. And I think that with Aries, I've always said that if you want Aries to do something, tell them that you don't think that they can, because
Absolutely.
they'll happily prove you wrong.
Absolutely. And she has helped a lot of people. She's just fierce. I love her. I
Yeah,
love what I know about her, I should say. And she definitely, as we said, she has this trailblazing public image. She was the first Black model on Sports Illustrated. And I think I remember the Victoria's Secret catalog with her on it. And she gave hope to a lot of little Black girls to know, yes, you can do this too. She takes direction from no one other than herself and her own higher mind. She has built a multi industry career, of course, because she's done acting and she hosts, she produces. She's very competitive, loves the high stake industries. And I got to tell you, acting and modeling, you wouldn't think that it's high stakes, but it is. It is dog eat dog, and you had better be fierce if you're going to stay on top and thrive in that industry. And also with producing and writing, those are high stakes industries too. She has a lot of energy. She's very assertive. She's very outspoken. And she always exudes a lot of self confidence. Even if there's a part of her that isn't self confident, you would never know it because of the way she presents herself. And I didn't realize she launched Model Land. I had no idea that she had launched that.
America's Next Top Model, although all of you out there who are familiar with her probably already knew that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, let's move on to our next chart. We're going to look at a Taurus midheaven chart, and we have Justin Timberlake, who is a pretty well-known singer, dancer, actor. The very different vibe, though, right? Going from Aries
Mm-hmm.
to Taurus.
Very.
Yeah.
And yet just as well known.
He's a Venus ruled midheaven. And when we look at that midheaven, we do always want to keep that in mind. Well, where is the ruler? Well, in the sixth house in Capricorn. This guy is grounded. His branding is going to be very focused. And, we like to say Taurus gets into a routine and that Taurus likes to, in a fixed way, stick to the same type of work. And as an actor or a singer, there has to be versatility. And I'm sure that we're seeing that in other places in his chart, which we're not going to go there, but we already know he has that Aquarius sun, he has a Sagittarius moon. And his midheaven and that Venus is really going to help ground that. And it's going to bring that artistic focus in, and it's going to help him with his longevity. I would say that his brand strategy, there would be some sort of consistent nature to his brand strategy, whether it's him or he's hiring people who help bring that consistency into his brand, who are really watching what he's doing and ensuring that everything does stay on brand, because we're talking a fixed midheaven here. There's that harmony and pleasure that's brought in. There's this sensual nature to how he does his branding.
With that Taurus, I would guesstimate that he is in his body. He has to feel. Taurus is very much about, as you said, the sensualness, but it's also about values and what he values. And that goes back to that Venus. And he would still value hard work. He would still value taking time out. He would be someone, in my view, who would look at that work life balance and be able to tell when he needs downtime. Because with the Taurus, you can push, but you can only push so far. Part of you that says, I need to go play or I need some downtime, it's going to kick in. So knowing that about your style is really important.
And just looking at his ascendant, descendant, midheaven, I see all in fixed signs. I love how he has that kind of fixed, grounded nature to support his sun in Aquarius and his moon in Sag. That's
Mhm.
a nice dynamic. And of course, we're not doing a delineation of the chart, so we're not going to get into the squares and all that. But just if you
No,
right, if you think about the nature of the midheaven and that it's his brand, I can see it. He brings sensuality to his performances. He's an amazing dancer. He's an amazing performer. He does touch on the senses. Like, we get excited. We can think about the different senses being activated by watching him as this superstar.
And he's good looking because that's Venus. He's in the beverage industry, which I didn't know that. That would be related to Taurus's appreciation for beauty and luxury. He has been around for quite a while, so he has stability and he's able to pivot. He, of course, now has a successful solo career. He's got the longevity, and I would suspect that he'll be around for a long time to come. And also shows here that it really does like quality. It does not go for fads. It is not about here today, gone tomorrow with clothing or with your style. I think of it as the Audrey Hepburn sign because it wants classic. It wants beauty. It wants quality. And you can tell that it wants texture too. And that's what he's all about. That would be Taurus.
And now we go to Gemini, the
Yeah.
sign of the twins. So Gemini midheaven, and our chart for Gemini midheaven is Steve Wozniak. If you don't know who he is, he was the partner of Steve Jobs, who developed the company Apple. So if you have an iPhone, you can thank Steve Wozniak for being a big part of how that came into existence. I'm on my MacBook and I have my iPhone right here, so I have a great appreciation for Steve Wozniak. So there's his midheaven. It is in the 10th house in Gemini. And that would indicate a brand that has a lot of variety and diversity, that has some mental stimulation aspect to it. Any sign could have an intellectual quality, right? Because we're human beings and we think. But
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking specifically about Gemini, we're talking about that mental stimulation as part of the brand, as a way of being in the brand. And definitely one that is adaptable, that can recognize trends and follow them and make use of them. It's excellent for messaging and designing your marketing strategy. And of course, we want to look to Mercury for understanding how the planet that rules the midheaven is going to carry out those marketing and public image jobs that come along with the midheaven. And we see Mercury in the first house in the whole sign system in Virgo, in its own sign, ruling the midheaven. So it's a pretty powerful Virgo with that Saturn and with the ascendant also in Virgo. And you can see how this computer developer person who was creating really something brand new, something innovative that didn't exist before, played such a big role in our technology today. And we have a beautiful example of that with Steve Wozniak.
Absolutely. If you think about Mercury in Virgo, Virgo is all about systems and creating the systems, breaking down the big picture idea into smaller, doable stages that can be utilized. Being a programmer, he was able to do that. He was able to have that determination and that focus because it takes a lot of focus to do what he's done because Gemini can be scattered and it can do too many things. With that Gemini midheaven, what you have to also know is it's okay to do a variety of things inside one industry. And so, with the work that you do, just like Lori has said, you've got to look to that Mercury. And that's going to really help you know how to create what it is you need to sustain yourself out there because you don't want to burn out. He left Apple and he's doing something else now too. And that's the other thing with that Gemini midheaven. A lot of times you will do several things or you have several careers, or you'll even have a career that has a lot of different components to it because the mind has to stay stimulated. The last thing a Gemini ever wants is to be bored. That is really important. We're looking at the innovative communication. So, of course, he co created Apple. pioneer in personal computing. He was self-taught engineer who built his first computer at age 13. Now tell me that's not a Gemini to do that. And especially with that Mercury in the first house, it was about him. He's very self-motivated. He's got that Saturn there, so it was going to be hard work for him, but he did it. He teaches, he does philanthropy, he does other tech ventures, which showcases his mutability because he's got his hand in a few different pies. However, all of those pies are related. They're not so far removed from each other that they don't work together. They kind of dovetail together.
I think he's a pretty amazing person. I don't know what he's doing today, but I imagine with that Virgo ascendant and Saturn and Mercury there that he's holding himself to some high standards.
He's working it.
He's working it.
He's working it.
Now, for our
Oh,
next
yeah.
slide, we have another Steve and Stevie, actually, Stevie Wonder, who is a musician and a songwriter, has had a long career as a well-known musician. And we have his midheaven in Cancer in the 10th house. We do see that Uranus nearby. And with Cancer in the midheaven, it's somebody who's going to be driven, or their brand is probably more driven by emotional instinct or instinct, because Cancer is such an instinctual sign and ruled, of course, by the moon. And we see the moon there in Aries in the 7th house. So there's some drive behind that. There's I think, a lot of energy with the
Mhm.
Midheaven brand. There is likely to be a need for security in the brand. Now, of course, he's not here for us to ask that, so we don't know, but we're using some of those Cancer midheaven keywords. That moon squared to the midheaven, I would imagine there was a significant amount of drive. And it's also the clients, right? When the others, when we look at the other side, so the fans and the audience, and then looking at that ascendant with the Neptune there, it's like all that amazing songwriting that's coming out of him. And he was a piano player. He's blind. He's playing the piano and in his amazing performances. I grew up listening to him. I can still envision him singing at the piano.
He was very much well loved. And, you think about that Cancer archetype. He had this and still has this ability to reach your heart with his music, with his voice, not just the words, but how he sings them. It goes straight to your core. You could sit down and have a good conversation with him too. Yeah, being blind never stopped him either. And that's that moon in Aries in that seventh house. It just, so what? Just
Yeah. And I think
sense
that
it.
Neptune rising as well with the ascendant, just, really being inspired or inspiring. It's,
Mhm.
it's the Cancer quality of the midheaven. What an interesting chart. This might be one we might have to come back and look more deeply at.
You think about the senses with Cancer. I just think the man has to be intuitive. He has to be able to pick up on energy with that Cancer midheaven. So, emotional musicality, of course. He is very soulful. He does philanthropy. He did the We Are the World. He was part of that with Live Aid with a lot of the other performers. And I loved watching the video of the production of that, watching them talk together and laugh. He advocates for social causes. So he actively participates in civil rights campaigns. And he is one of the singers who actively campaigned for Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday to become a national holiday and actually got it done. Is, of course, intuitive, as I mentioned before. He loves jazz, he does soul. He's able to pivot to know what industry is coming up, what music is actually going to be on the forefront. And he, of course, has been blind from birth and became a musical icon. I actually question whether we should call blindness or anything a disability. Is it really a disability? Because it's something, especially when you're born with it, or It's just something that occurs and you learn how to work with it. You learn how to thrive with it.
Essential dignity and debility instead, because maybe astrology can show where we truly struggle. I think that you hit a good point. There's this word active that keeps coming up and how he pivots. And when you think about the angles, of course, we're looking at the midheaven, but when we think about the four angles and the four cardinal signs, we have somebody here who has the cardinal signs on the angles. So there is going to be this active approach to life, to getting himself out there, that his chart does have that built-in quality of externalization, of being able to get his brand out. Now, he's getting his brand out in a Cancer way from the midheaven, his public brand. And I think for celebrities, it's difficult to tease apart the personal brand from the public brand. Like when I do the branding work, when I work one-on-one with people, I look at their ascendant as more of their personal brand and then the midheaven as the public image. And you can see where there's times when they're two very different things. But with a celebrity, their personal brand and their public brand are perceived together, even if their friends and family see that personal side of their ascendant very differently. We're not seeing that. So we, the public who sees a celebrity, are oftentimes seeing that ascendant and midheaven blended together. What do you think about that, Marie?
Oh, I know that's true because I mean, I still remember hearing an interview that Marilyn Monroe gave when she said, and who else? Who else? There's been a few actresses who have said this when they've gotten married. It's like they thought they were marrying Marilyn, but what they got was Norma Jean. Or they thought they were marrying XYZ, but what they got was something else. So they have this persona out in the world and people see that and that's what they want. But then when they see them personally, they're just not that at all. As a matter of fact, a lot of actors are shy. They're not necessarily introverts, but they're shy. And they are very good at memorizing lines and getting into the character and performing that character, but you don't really see the actor. With music, it's a little different. And yet there is a persona to the musician. And you don't necessarily know who they are behind the scenes. I mean, you think about Mick Jagger or the Beatles. We put them on a pedestal and we see them a certain way, and that's wonderful. But we also have to realize there is that personal part of them that we'll never know unless they decide to show it to us.
Yeah. I think that makes it much more difficult when we use the celebrity charts. Like it's easier to talk about them because people know who they are, but we don't really know who they are. We know who they let us see.
Mm-hmm.
They decide what gets shown to us. And of course, there's the paparazzi who, follows them around and tries to get those intimate pictures. But even that doesn't really tell us that much about them. Moving on to the next celebrity chart, and we're looking at a Leo midheaven. So this is Jim Carrey, who is an actor. He's been in acting for quite a while now. He's had a lot of big, huge films. He kind of ducked out of the spotlight for a little while, and he's come back. There's, and I know at least one new movie that I'm familiar with
Mm-hmm.
that's out right now. And let's see, he also has that Uranus on the midheaven that we cannot ignore. And if you know who Jim Carrey is, you can already see his face expressions and the body twisting in different ways and how he's hopefully made you laugh. He's definitely made me laugh over and over again. I think he's a very talented actor. And the ruler of Leo is the sun. So that is the brand architect. That's helping
Mm-hmm.
to take that midheaven brand and public image and bring it out into the world. And that's happening through the third house, through Capricorn. He's a sun Capricorn, which is right there with Venus and Mars as well. So I think that he's well known for being a hard worker. That's that Capricorn, but really he shines. You put him in the spotlight and he entertains. And I remember reading his biography, how he was entertaining his family when he was a little kid. Like, this is who he is. This is what he's done. He liked to make people laugh since he was a little kid. I don't have time to go deeply into his story, and it's not all roses. He definitely has a story, but that Leo midheaven is one that really wants to shine and get out there and express itself, right? It's Leo.
He is really an artist because if I'm not mistaken, I think he also draws. And he's gotten deeply, from what I remember, into spirituality, looking at the cosmos. He'd probably be interested in astrology, I would think, because of what the little that I've read about him, which is interesting too, because a daytime sun is going to manifest differently than a nighttime sun. And he has a nighttime sun. Even though he's out there, he's visible, he's fine with it, he still has that private part of him. I like Jim Carrey. I sometimes wonder, though, if he has had issues with depression, especially, with that Saturn down there in the fourth house.
And another Neptune ascendant, by the way. We were just looking at Neptune ascendant.
That's true. That is true. I see him as a seeker, and, his North Node is in Leo. The North Node, a lot of times, isn't visible because you have to really work at making that known as working towards that North Node and having it be there with the MC. I wonder, even though he made people laugh when he was a kid, I wonder about the why of it. I mean, did he do it because there was something going on in the home and he wanted to make people happy? Did he do it because he was compelled to do it? Anyway, he's very creative. He's very vital, but you either love him or you hate him because he's not going to pull any punches. He's just going to be out there all on, all on. You can see that sensitivity there too. He's very energetic. Of course, the slapstick comedy, we know that. And Matt with The Mask and Dumb and Dumber. Oh my goodness. I remember Dumb and Dumber. It's just
Yeah. And then he went into those versatile roles like The Truman Show and
Oh,
Eternal
that's
Sunshine.
true.
Yeah,
That's
I've seen both
true.
of them, and they're more drama. So he definitely showcased that versatility, which I think we see in the Moon Gemini with the sun ruling the.
Yeah, and the overcoming early life challenges, the family financial struggles. Absolutely. He's been able to take those challenges that are probably still within and turn them around, showcase himself and do what he needs for his success. But I still see someone with a huge amount of sensitivity, and that's that Neptune, of course, over on the ascendant. Edward Norton. I mean, gotta love people. Virgo gets such a bad rap, yeah, because it's like, oh my goodness, really, Virgo? And yet, Virgo is the sign that really knows systems and knows how to get things done, and it will do the hard work. To me, he's a very beautiful actor and he really studies his characters. Virgo is characterized by precision, analytical thinking, a commitment to excellence, and he certainly is committed to excellence. It is very meticulous with details. And Mercury, of course, is the ruler of Virgo. When we're looking at this midheaven, we see Mercury right there. It's very difficult to separate the two. He also has Pluto there, so he's going to have a lot of depth. Mercury, of course, is guided by the intellect. It's the mind, it's communication, it's the careers where you can talk, where you can write, where you can be Hermes, really. And it's also very versatile. You achieve success through diligence, versatility, and a focus on continuous improvement, which is something that he does all the time. Now, looking at that ascendant, of course, that also adds to it because he's able to go to the depths of the emotional depths to come up with the characters because you have to come up with the characters to be able to play them. So he comes across as, in my opinion, is true. He really knows his characters when he steps in front of the camera.
It's interesting to see that we have another Neptune ascendant. You'd think that maybe we did the search that way, but we didn't. What he does have, though, is that Midheaven has floated over to the 11th house. So we're
Ah, yeah.
taking what we could say, the 10th house, the vocation, the calling, and looking towards 11th house topics. So big groups. If I was talking to him about his marketing strategy, I would be really excited to have his ruler of the midheaven, Mercury, conjunct the midheaven, and in the part of the chart that's about marketing and strategy and big groups. If he chose to, he could probably bring a lot of people into his brand with a very strategic plan. It would be designed to the day. What am I going to say? When am I going to say it? How am I going to say it? What is the why underneath why I'm saying it? And what is it that I hope to get from that? And then would break it down into analytics as to how well each of those things performed, and then take that information and bring it back in to refine the message, to refine the strategy, and do it again. It's kind of like that rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. So if you have a Virgo midheaven, this could be something that maybe you're doing. And hopefully you're following along and you're going to eventually see a chart that has your midheaven. So for Virgo midheavens or any other sign, feel free to leave comments below about how
Mhm.
your midheaven shows up for you. We all kind of want to hear from each other. How does this show up for you? We're astrologers. We know that there's a spectrum, a continuum of different ways that the energy can show up, from in Virgo rising, from that perfectionism and perhaps getting a little bit too lost in detail, to having a very well laid out plan that isn't just the plan, but it has built into it a way, a feedback loop, right? Of
Mhm.
let's do this, let's collect the data, analyze the data, use the data to make it better, and then go do it again, and then go do it again.
There he is.
Here he is.
You looking at him, isn't he meticulous? He looks put together, well put together. He's, of course, taken diverse roles. He's directed in keeping the faith, which I didn't see in 2000 or Motherless Brooklyn, but he did direct. He is a philanthropist too, and he has activism. He is involved in social and environmental causes. He has a very private personal life. He maintains a low profile. You really don't see him a lot out on the red carpet or doing a lot of social engaging things. So he focuses on his craft rather than seeking the spotlight. Very modest, and that's Virgo.
And I'm sure that there is some strategy behind how he does that, because we know it's not easy for celebrities to maintain a low profile.
I can imagine with the celebrities who do that, it's all strategic in how much you're actually out to make people think that you haven't just disappeared, but then spending most of your time behind the scenes because it's virtually impossible to prepare for a role if you're out in public all the time. You've got to have a lot of downtime.
Just in case you all don't know who Billie Joe Armstrong is, if you're into music, this is the lead singer from Green Day, the band Green Day. His midheaven is in Libra in the 10th house, and it is somewhat close to Uranus. It's 6 degrees off. So that gives a bit of electricity to that midheaven sign. And when we think about a Libra midheaven brand, this is somebody who's bringing in beauty and harmony and artistical pursuits, and really wanting to share this passion of art, right? Bringing that art
Mhm.
to the masses through the midheaven. Libra is known for having those artistic skills. Or, when we look at the midheaven to say, what is our calling? And we see that it's Libra, one of the Venus signs, that it would likely indicate somebody who is drawn to the arts in one way or the other. And, music is towards the top of the list of what we might think about when we think about the arts. And that this would be somebody who really wants to be liked, who may have difficulty with any bad reviews, and would, when he's in a band, right? He's not a solo artist. Now, that doesn't mean that every solo artist who has a Libra midheaven would have their band, but he's definitely part of a band. He has a striking look, which you'll see the picture of him on the next slide. And then, of course, we want to look to Venus. Where is Venus in the chart? How is Venus carrying out the work of that midheaven brand? Well, she's across the way. She is in Aries, the opposite sign, conjunct the moon. There's probably a lot of passion and drive pushing him to get out there. There could have been some struggle. I mean, that is a opposition there, but it could also be very motivating. And also that maybe somehow family, home, his roots helped launch that, helped push him out there. I don't know his history, so I can't really speak to what that family history might look like. And then the other noticeable thing to point out here, because we can't delineate the whole chart, but hey, he's got that Jupiter ascendant very close, 3 degrees apart in Capricorn. So that means that another one who has cardinal signs on the angles. So it's like, it's really about getting out in the world.
When I'm looking at this chart, one of the things that stands out is Venus and Mars are in mutual reception. They're working together. Venus is the ruler, of course, of that midheaven, and she is really answering to Mars in Taurus. So they're working together to help him be this innovative person, to also still be grounded, because Aries is not necessarily grounded. Aries is fire, aim. What am I shooting at? He's been able to be successful. He's got grit. He's got staying power too, because of that Taurus, that Venus energy in Aries working with Mars in Taurus. So that's actually a good thing.
Yeah, he's a pretty active guy. That's him right there. You can see him.
Mm-hmm.
His long-standing partnership with his band. He's done other projects with other musicians. I love this as a Libra midheaven, that he's kind of put activism behind LGBTQ populations and rights. I thought this was interesting that if you listen to the music, definitely more on that punk rock side, but with melodic
Mm-hmm.
tunes. And there's that one song that's really famous, and the title is escaping me now, but it's very melodic. It's a beautiful song. So that Libra is shining through, that he's bringing melody even into something that's more punk.
I wonder, does he want to break out and do solo, or does he want to stay with the group? Everything has a season. Just wonder about that, especially with Venus being in Aries.
Libra midheaven, just to show you two different variances.
Yeah,
And don't know why just this one sign, but we have two. The other ones we just
of
have them
course,
here.
it's Venus. Why
It's
would
Venus.
she rules two signs?
Both of her sides. Yeah, they're both polarities. Okay,
Oh
so
my
Winona
goodness.
also has that Libra midheaven. Hers floats over to the 11th house. Here's another one with Uranus, which, I think we might want to just say a quick thing on that. How interesting it is when we see celebrities with the outer planets at the angles, and
Hmm.
how outer planets can maybe indicate that you are bringing more out into the world, that it has that
Hmm.
external quality to it.
It's not personal, it's about the people. And you're just the catalyst or the instrument bringing the information out to the people. And I see it more versal with those outer planets.
Yeah. Of course, we want to point out that with Winona Ryder, her Venus, ruler of Libra, is in the 12th house. And it makes me think of some of the movies she's done. Stranger Things and the Beetlejuice movies,
Oh
and kind of
yeah.
like that 12th house quality that we could say goes with the going into the underworld,
Hmm.
dealing with death, dealing with, Stranger Things has that thing where it like kind of turns where we are upside down, and this polar opposite side. So I thought that was so interesting when we were looking at, who to select for Venus. And I think these two characters are so cool to show how you can see the difference and the similarities with with the same midheaven sign.
Oh, absolutely. And we still have Jupiter there too, and Neptune with that IC.
Yep, another one.
And of course, we know she's a diverse person. She did roles in Beetlejuice. That's right. I remember that. The Heathers and the Age of Innocence. She has had a very long career too, and a very long relationship because she's with filmmakers like Tim Burton, and she maintained supportive ties with long-term co-stars. So she stays in relationship with her co-stars well after the movies are done. She's used her platform for advocacy, for example, child safety, environmental issues, mental health awareness, indigenous education. She is also known for her style and her poise, which fits very nicely with the Venus archetype. She's maintained, of course, a polished intellectual image, which is also Libra and Venus.
I think all celebrities have to support some charitable cause for their tax write-offs. But when you
Mm-hmm,
see where they're putting that, and you see the two Libra midheavens were supporting the underdog, for the
mm-hmm,
populations that considered on the fringe or get pushed to the fringe, I should say. And it's nice to see that she's supporting, child safety. Children are minors. They don't have much of a voice. The indigenous people don't have
mm-hmm.
enough of a voice. So she's using it for that advocacy.
As you're talking, what comes to mind too, the marketing aspect, not for them, but for marketers who want to pitch to them. They really need to have a product or some cause that, in my view, speaks to the celebrities midheaven, or they're going to say no. They're going to be less likely to support.
All right, so our next midheaven is Scorpio. And now we're moving on to somebody who is a basketball player, Dennis Rodman. You may be familiar with him. And he is a Scorpio midheaven that has floated to the 11th house. And he has Neptune with the midheaven. And he has Saturn with the ascendant. So with a Scorpio midheaven, who knows what's going on? It's Scorpio. We're going to get exactly what he wants us to get from his brand, right? Scorpio is going to,
Sorry,
but okay, all jokes aside, although not really joking, joking, not.
not really, not
Yeah.
really.
But I do like this word commands attention and fearlessness or pushing of the boundaries and wanting to bring in an air of intrigue or some mystery about their brand and how they put themselves out there. And with Neptune conjunct the midheaven, that's kind of doubly so. Can we really say we know who Dennis Rodman is as the
Mm-hmm.
celebrity? Probably not. We know some of the things he's done. He's definitely made the news off of the court, you could say. But he's very interesting. And that's Scorpio too. It's like magnetic. It's like if he were to walk in the room, there would probably be that presence, and everybody be like, who's that? Or they know who it is and like, look at who that is. And that there would be some statement. It's not going to be like Leo that may be like, I'm here, and it's more charismatic, going to be more subdued, maybe more subtle. but a statement nonetheless, something that's very magnetic. It gets you to look. And of course, we want to look at the ruler of the midheaven, which is Mars. And Mars in Dennis Rodman's chart is over there in the eighth house. So, ooh, he just became a bit more mysterious. He may really put a lot of energy behind the scenes that we don't see. Now, as the time period when he was playing basketball, that could speak to his approach to his art, to his work. But I think it also would just describe a brand that does always carry an air of mystery. And the way that it goes about putting its branding out there may have a lot of subtle messages underneath the surface, read between the lines. Back in the day when cryptic was cool and poetic language that you had to spend 10 hours trying to decipher it, when that was like a marketing tactic, he would have been very good at that. If you have this configuration today, you'll have to think about how to combine practical marketing, which is being clear with your messaging, but still bringing in some of that subtle, that there's things built into that. It's less said and more shown. What do you think, Marie?
I was looking at his ascendant and looking at the Saturn. In looking at that, that midheaven in that 10th house, of course, is about your mission in the world. And I think about celebrities who they gain celebrity so that they can do their mission. And their mission may not be what they're actually doing, the basketball or the acting, but it could easily be something else that becomes their mission. When I think it was Audrey Hepburn who became an ambassador for, going to Africa and saving the children. So she used her celebrity for her mission. Her mission really wasn't the celebrity. It was the other work that she did. And it may be that for Dennis Rodman too, because he has a 29-degree Saturn in Capricorn there in that first house, a Capricorn ascendant. So he's mastering something in this lifetime, and it's related to that Scorpio midheaven. He's mastering being authentically himself, regardless of what society thinks about him. And he had to have that celebrity because it had to be big, it had to be out there, and he had to be the master of his own ship, so to speak, because it's Scorpio, it's out there on the water. And that's something I think you have to look at too with that midheaven and looking at the ascendant, bringing that in with how you're actually going to brand yourself. What is the sole intention for you to have that particular midheaven related to, yes, your work and how you're seen out there in the world?
Moving on to the Sagittarius midheaven. This is another
Mhm.
sports person, Tony Hawk. His sport is skateboarding. You may or may not be familiar with him, but he was somebody who very well known in skateboarding. And he has his midheaven in the 10th house in Sagittarius. And there are no other planets in the midheaven or the ascendant. I think this might be the first person who we've looked at so far that doesn't have that. And we want to look at Jupiter, and that is in the sixth house. So it's going to speak to somebody who is very driven on a day-to-day basis to work hard, play hard. This is a brand that wants to really experience. When I think about Sagittarius, the first thing that comes to mind is doing something for the sake of doing it, because Sagittarius wants to experience everything. And that
Mhm.
saying of it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. To me, that's Sagittarius. So if we're talking about a Sagittarius brand and the calling in the 10th house, that there's this need for the brand to experience, to develop, to grow and evolve, not to stay in one place. And his rising sign is Pisces, so we have the mutable angles. That's built into his chart, is to constantly be evolving and growing. And skateboarding has, I'm guessing here, I'm not a skateboarder. I don't think I've ever stepped on a skateboard in my life, but I'm going to venture to say that it's not something that you can do professionally for many decades. At some point, it's going to take its toll on you physically. And though he may skateboard I don't know, he probably still does skateboard, but I'm talking about the professional competing and things like that. At some point, you do have to grow and expand. With Jupiter in the sixth house, this is somebody who's probably going to do some service-based work and also philosophy. Whatever somebody does for their calling with the Sagittarius rising, it's going to have meaning. That's what's going to really inspire them. And doubly so because we're talking about an ascendant and a midheaven, both ruled by Jupiter in the sixth house. So there's a great deal of service, of calling that serves others.
I agree with that. And when I think of Sagittarius, I think of because each of the signs has a mantra in esoteric astrology. And with Sagittarius, I see a goal because that the arrow is an arrow of aspiration. I see a goal, I shoot my arrow, I reach the goal, and then I see another goal. So with the diversity with career, it really has to be diverse. It has to be aspirational. It has to see the glass is not just half full, but two-thirds full, even if it's not, because it's aspiring. It is something that may never be attained, but it has to be constantly working towards it in with the career and with what it does. It would really love philanthropy and diversity and shooting for making the world a better place. Doesn't he look like an archer?
Yes, if I had to say that's what an archer looked like, he looked like Tony Hawk.
Well, in a hawk, you think about a hawk, his last name is, I see it, and I'm going after the goal.
Yeah. And so now that we've looked at that, I think it's really interesting that he has this skate park project where he introduces skateboarding to communities worldwide. That's really cool.
It is cool. I
Really,
love that.
he's moved beyond skateboarding into media, business, and philanthropy. So it's that, constantly having to evolve. This is not fixed signs, mutable signs on his angles, and he's going to need more and different stimulation. Otherwise, he'll just get bored. And
Absolutely.
Sagittarians, they don't want to be bored. They will not be bored. That's just not, that's not the way they do things. They will find something to do.
I don't know if they have longevity or not, but in the mind, I can see them even into their 90s, just still working, still doing
Yeah,
something. They're not going to sit
absolutely.
on the couch.
Yep. If you're a Sagittarius midheaven, you're probably always going to have something that you're working on related to your calling. If you're in retirement, it's probably volunteer work, or maybe the word retirement just doesn't even cross your mind.
It's true.
Queen Latifah, Capricorn
Woohoo!
midheaven. Yes, the queen. Let's
He
see.
is that.
Finally, we have somebody who has the midheaven that has floated over to the ninth house. I think this is the first chart where we're seeing a midheaven in the ninth house. And of course, it's Capricorn, so we want to be very aware of Saturn. And we see Saturn down there, and we see Saturn over there conjunct Mars with the ascendant. This is a pretty powerful chart. And it's a mix. We have the midheaven and IC and cardinal signs, and then we have the ascendant and descendant in fixed signs. So she has that mix of fixed and cardinal. So with the Capricorn midheaven, this is a business brand. This is all about business. Now it has floated over to the ninth house, so it's going to include vision, and it's going to include maybe some education, maybe some long distance travel, and maybe even some legal stuff. Now we know
Mhm.
Queen Latifah is an actress and she's been involved in other businesses. But if we think Capricorn, it's a very business oriented type of midheaven. I mean, this could be a lawyer, right? Because it's
Mhm.
ninth house law, midheaven Capricorn. The buck stops here. This is a very determined midheaven. It's kind of unstoppable. It's a type of brand that's going to be very strategic. It's going to be goal oriented. It's going to know what it wants to achieve, and it's going to achieve it. Probably. We have to consider all parts of the chart and timing, etc. Of course, we're astrologers. We know these things. And then there's the Saturn Mars conjunction with the ascendant. So even more of a powerhouse type of energy. We're talking Earth, very grounded, very practical, probably long-term goals. If Queen Latifah was sitting here right now, I'd say, how young were you when you knew that you wanted to be a performer, an entertainer, an actress?
Mhm.
And did it unfold kind of like the way that you designed your strategy? Because I just
Mhm.
see this very determined, unstoppable force here. But Pisces sun, so inspired, and Pisces Mercury as well. So it's a really interesting mix because now you're bringing in that water and a much softer kind of energy with Pisces with this determined approach.
I remember her when she started out as a singer. I believe she was a rapper, as a matter of fact. That's how she started out and then transitioned into acting. She is a powerhouse. She is a businesswoman. I remember her in Chicago, the song in Chicago of You Take Care of Mama and Mama Will Take Care of You. I don't know if you ever saw the show. She was the businesswoman in there, and you didn't mess with her. She and the roles that she takes on, she did the Equalizer. And I remember the Equalizer back in the 80s. I've forgotten the guys who initiated that particular series, but she took it over. And she's typically in powerful roles. When you see her, just looking at her stature, the way she looks at you, you know she has compassion, Pisces, of course, but she's very shrewd. And as a Black female, she has made it in a world where you're taught, if you're a Black female actor, that you will rarely ever get lead roles. So she's been able to do this. So she's one of the first female rappers to get a Grammy. So she broke barriers basically in a male dominated industry because rapping has typically been male dominated. Because she was a rapper, you would think that it would have been harder for her to transition into acting because of the persona. And yet she transitioned quite nicely. She earned an Academy Award nomination for Chicago, which I mentioned, and for her role in The Equalizer and Set It Off. I didn't see Set It Off, but wonderful, wonderful actress in my view. I can imagine that she was very strategic with planning her career because she is into producing and she creates opportunities for others in film and television. She's out there giving back to the community. She maintains a very polished professional image. I've never heard her not be polished when I've seen her give interviews. She knows the image that she wants to portray, and she knows what she wants you to know about her and how she wants to be seen, and that's how she portrays herself. I still remember her doing the Weight Watchers commercial, and I thought, really? You're going to do that? But it worked for her, and it didn't bother her image at all. She authored a book on self respect. And when I think of self respect, I think of the other singer who sang the song
Oh,
Respect,
Aretha Franklin.
Aretha Franklin. And I don't know if they knew each other or if she ever got to meet Aretha Franklin, but to me, I put her in that same category with Aretha. So, yes, she had her own talk show. She's going to be around because we're looking at Saturn. I suspect that people will know Queen Latifah and know her work long after she has crossed over.
That impact that she has. And with the ninth house, it's education related as well,
Hmm.
and can definitely be a global type of energy.
Hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, our next one is country music star Randy Travis, who I believe also did some acting, and he has an Aquarius midheaven. So we see the midheaven is in the seventh house. So we see the midheaven is in the 10th house. We want to look for the Saturn, which is in its own sign in Capricorn in the ninth house. And he's a Taurus sun and a Taurus ascendant. An Aquarius midheaven is going to be somebody whose brand is going to be different, right? It's Aquarius. It wants to be different. It wants to do its own thing. It wants to do something original. It is a fixed sign, so we know that this can be a brand that can have an attachment to how it's putting itself out there and not necessarily want to change it. But it is Aquarius. That can also mean it wants to be different and wants to stay in the realm of different. And whatever that means, that there still can be that fixed quality that I'm different. I think of David Bowie like that. I'm saying that without thinking of any of his astrological placements. But we're talking about Randy Travis, who has this Aquarius midheaven and Saturn as the brand architect living over there in the ninth house. So it's going to indicate that there can be a lot of work that he has to put into to develop his brand. That it's not probably going to come easy, but it may be that he's so driven to do his original work that it doesn't bother him that he has to work hard. He would do original things, original songs, maybe do something different. Maybe in country music, since that's where he started, is that he did something different and trailblazed a new way of doing things. Now, for any of you out there that have an Aquarius midheaven, think about that for your brand, that there's probably going to be this need to do something that hasn't been done before. That if you're coming into astrology, you're an astrologer and you have a midheaven that's Aquarius, that you're going to want to differentiate from the get-go. You may not start out doing what all the other astrologers do. You may not do sun sign horoscopes. You may not even do consultations. You may jump straight into research, and that's what your brand is about. That's what you're sharing with the community. So it's about doing something different. And in this particular chart, he does have Saturn, the ruler of Aquarius, in its own sign. So he has a tremendous amount of resilience to bring to his brand.
I also would look at Uranus being the modern ruler. I consider it adding an adjective to the Saturn. And when you got Uranus in the fourth house, this is something he's developed over lifetimes, that ability to be original, to be uniquely himself in the home for that matter. But it's in Leo, which is, of course, the sun. When I see that Uranus there, he cannot help but be his unique self. He can't follow somebody else's music. That AC and the sun in the first house, he's going to shine. He has to. And he's well known, as we know. Even if you don't like country music, most people still know Randy Travis and know what he does and probably even likes his music. So he has applied discipline and unconventional methods, unconventional paths, which would be the Saturn and the Uranus.
And I love that you pointed out Uranus, because look at that, applying T square to Uranus. The sun is applying to Uranus, that midheaven is applying to Uranus. And you're right, it's like he can't help but shine, and probably shine for being a bit different, even though that's a sun in Taurus, right? It's one of the most
Right.
grounded sun signs you can have. But we're talking about branding in the midheaven. I hope as we're going through these charts that you're starting to, look at that midheaven as an important angle. I know that we know that, but I think that as astrologers, we're always big three, ascendant, sun, moon, and to start getting in the habit of bringing that one in too, especially if you're a business owner and if you're an astrologer and you're creating your brand. This is an important part of your brand strategy.
Absolutely.
He's known for revolutionizing traditional country. And there you have it. Defied industry expectations. So I love some of these keywords that come along with what we hope or expect to see with the sign placements. And of course, he has that discipline. He's been in the country music scene for decades. What's interesting is how he came back after a near fatal stroke. It's like you can't keep this guy down. They told him that
Yeah.
he wouldn't be able to sing, and then he ended up defying that and returning to speak and make public appearances. So
Hmm.
I think that's a good example of sun in the first house as well, how that sun is coming into. So our last sign is Pisces, and we're going to look at a Pisces midheaven now. And we have an actress, going back to the actresses, Emily Deschanel. And if you're not familiar with her, she is the actress who was in Bones, that TV series. It was on TV
Mm-hmm.
for quite a
Hmm.
while. I loved that series. So when I saw her as a Pisces midheaven, I was like, oh, that's cool. That's a good one for us to, talk about. And if you have a Pisces midheaven, then we're talking about a Jupiter ruled midheaven. This particular chart does have the midheaven floating over to the ninth house, so another ninth house midheaven. So first we'll look at Pisces. Pisces is mutable, it's adaptable, it's changeable. For an actress, like how perfect is that? Like you have to be a chameleon, you have to be able to play different roles. And so being an actress would be a fantastic calling for a Pisces midheaven. Moving into the ninth house, that could bring in some of her underlying belief systems, or if it's you want to probably think about like how well does what I am drawn to do in my vocation, how does that sync with my goals, my values, and my underlying philosophy and belief system as to how I apply it to life. We weren't talking about Emily, we could say that there may be some travel or some film, maybe filmmaking, documentary making around travel or location places. It's Pisces, Jupiter,
Hmm.
ninth house. And then, well, where is that Jupiter? Jupiter's over there with the moon in a fairly tight conjunction in the 12th house. So, again, reinforcing kind of like going to long distance places or traveling into foreign places. And even if those foreign places are not real, TV, we can travel into foreign places through a career that is fiction of different locations.
I love this because Pisces is really about fantasy, about going into the other worlds that may or may not exist. And so she's able to do that. She's able to go deep into that with that MC being in the ninth house. And then also having the 12th house, which is really Piscean. That's Pisces. That's the home house for Pisces. And to have your moon there is in Gemini. And Gemini, of course, is the mind. And Jupiter is going to expand that. I can imagine what it's like for her creating the characters. She could probably do endless character development with that Jupiter and Moon together in Gemini. In addition to that, I see that Neptune in the sixth house of her work, her daily activity, the day to day work that she does. And of course, that's in Sag. And Sag's natural home is the ninth house, and its ruler is Jupiter. This is a nice circuit for her to be able to do the work that she's here to do. I mean, even looking at her, it's like she creates a reality that we want to believe. I mean, she's very believable with the roles that she plays.
She likes to maintain a low profile. And, that moon, Jupiter in the 12th house, that we can kind of see where, as much as she probably loves to act, that's her way out into the world.
Mm-hmm.
But when she's not acting, to maybe, pull back into her own private world and,
Mm-hmm.
and really enjoy being in that private world, probably having a very active imagination and imagine a beautiful home.
It would be her refuge. And when the door is closed, she can just sit at a windowsill and read. I just picture her doing that, just sitting and reading and maybe listening to music and enjoying family and being in her own world. So, yeah, the midheaven is the beacon of your life's work. the point where your purpose meets the public. It is not just what you do, but the legacy you leave, the reputation you cultivate, and the vision you bring to life. Own it, shape it, and let it guide you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We wanted to show you a lot of charts, so we kind of plowed through a lot of stuff today, but hopefully it was enjoyable to you. You have a lot of charts to refer back to. And if you want to go deeper into your brand, I teach a course called Marketing for Astrologers. It runs every fall. And in that class, we literally develop your brand. So it's 5 weeks. And if you check the Kepler College store website, you can learn more about the dates and when it actually will be starting. And Marie also teaches with Kepler College. Tell us about your classes.
Yes, I have fundamentals of life coaching for astrologers and also the business of the business for being a life coach or being an astrologer who uses life coaching. My view is it's important to be able to take the information that we have as an astrologer and break it down so that it can benefit the client. So, not using as many of the astrological terms, but using layman's terms. And how do you coach somebody through the aspects that you see? These are the two courses, the main courses that I have with Kepler. The fundamentals of life coaching is taught in the spring. The business of the business is taught in the summer. I also have another class that I am teaching beginning this summer, one of the master classes on storytelling. If you're going to talk to someone about their career, their 10th house, how do you weave a story around that to hone in, help them to actually know and visualize and see themselves in their career? And thank you again for being here, for listening to and watching this YouTube video. You can contact me, of course, through Kepler College. I am on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can check out my book, And the Lotus Opened, a memoir. I have my email address here, my personal email address or business email addresses, one for the book and one for Padma Life Coaching, which is Reclaiming Life's Joy and Passion.
You can find me at lauriebarnesastrology.com or at Kepler College. I'm the marketing director for Kepler College. Sometimes you'll catch me hosting webinars and
Mhm.
you'll find me teaching. I will also be teaching a master class actually in the spring for starting your astro mapping business. I'll be co-teaching that with Cindy McKeon. So if you're looking to start an astro mapping business, please join us. And we hope you enjoyed today's episode. We'll be back with another episode for Let's Talk Astrology Business. And in the meantime, please leave comments below as to what you'd like to see from us in the future and anything you want to talk about with any
Yeah,
of the tips we shared. Maybe we can get some online comment discussions going on around the chart.
this would be so nice. I'd love this. I'd love to read your comments, to have your questions, and just thank you. All
Thanks, Lily.
right.
We'll see you
Thank
next
you. Bye.
time. Bye.